I've been involved in helping people become alcohol-free and stay alcohol-free for nearly a decade now. And one of the things that really annoys me is the phrase, just don't drink. Why? Because it just doesn't work. Just don't drink presumes a hell of a lot. It presumes that it's just an on-off switch. It presumes that alcohol is something that you can just switch off and switch on. It completely misses all the things that alcohol actually connects with. And it's not just chemistry. As we know, alcohol is a social drug. Alcohol helps us, particularly from a young age when we're feeling awkward. Alcohol's the thing that helps us connect with other people. It helps us socialise, it helps us become friends with people, and in a funny kind of way, allows us to think that we're actually a bit more confident, a bit more part of the gang, a bit more socialising. Or it may be that it helps us just overcome things. Whatever way, alcohol kids us on. And it's because it kids us on is why sayings like, just don't drink, just don't help. Let's take identity. Let's take who you are. If you've been drinking for a number of years, and I'm not talking about physical addiction, I'm not talking about alcoholism, I'm talking about middle lane drinkers. The kind of people I've worked with for years are the kind of people for whom drinking is just part of the day-to-day activity. It's what they do when they finish work, or come home, or over dinner, or watching the TV at night, when they socialise with people, when they've got a bit of time to themselves. Alcohol seems to touch each and every single part of that. And that becomes part of them. It's something that they identify with. Who doesn't think of the more glamorous side of alcohol? You know, the socialising, the getting out, the holidays, the beaches, the great parties or something like that, and who you become, who you think you become, who you think people view you as. All of these things, they're part of our identity, and part of the identity that alcohol likes to encourage us to believe. But that identity can be something that's difficult to let go of, or at least think we're letting go of. And that's one of the reasons why just not drinking just doesn't work. Another aspect of why saying just don't drink doesn't work is regulation. Now, I'm not talking about regulating how much you're drinking. It's not that. I'm talking about using alcohol to regulate how we feel. Alcohol, one of the big things it does is it makes us feel happy. It can make us feel sad, obviously, but it's got that boost of dopamine. It changes the state of how we feel. And we use that to control things. When we're not feeling so happy, we can use alcohol. When we're a bit nervous, we can use alcohol. When we're by ourselves or with groups, when things are starting to get down a little bit, when we're not feeling so confident, we can use alcohol. We're using alcohol to regulate how we feel, how we act. The irony is that a couple of glasses of alcohol and you're not really in control. You're not really regulating these things, but it happens to us all. I am not talking about completely losing control, although that can happen. But what we're really looking at is suddenly, if alcohol isn't there, we've got to face those emotions and those circumstances without alcohol's help. And that can be a scary thing, but it can pass. You can get over it. And that's an important thing to remember. It does pass. And my third point about just saying, just don't drink and why it doesn't work. Replacement. By that, I mean it's finding a replacement for the alcohol itself. Alcohol, one of the most common things that I've heard people say is, what do I do with all this time? Because alcohol robs us of time. Alcohol robs us of the things that we have enjoyed for years. We don't even know it. We don't even really see what's happening. It just happens. And that's where it becomes really important when you become alcohol free, If you're wanting to stay alcohol free, it becomes really important to start finding alternatives, the things that you're really interested in. I've done another video about the things that give us that boost, and one of the important things to remember there is it's not always the things that give everybody else a boost. So yes, there are things like going for a walk or going running. Yes, there are things like doing jigsaw puzzles. But if that's not the thing that interests you, then that's going to seem like a struggle. That's going to seem like a chore to do. So maybe it's learning a language. Maybe it's learning a musical instrument. Maybe it's getting back into watching films all the way through and not having to watch it a second time just to see what happened at the end. Maybe it's that sort of thing. Maybe, and this can be difficult, this really can be difficult, something like reading a book, unless you have kept the habit of reading going. Sometimes reading a book can take a bit of effort, even though you want to. And it's the same with a few other hobbies and interests. And the reason for that is your attention span might not be as long as it was before you started drinking, or even a few years ago, even if you were drinking. Because alcohol is controlling the dopamine, because alcohol floods us with dopamine and it's controlled that way, we don't do the dopamine ourselves. We don't get that so much. We're not generating it quite so easily. So our interest, our excitement about something might be dulled, and that can happen for a while. Typically, they say that your body needs about 30 days to start to adjust to that feeling of having to generate and understand its own dopamine and get that back. But different people, different timescales. So where do we take this from here? What does work? What handy little phrases do help us out? Well, instead of saying, just don't drink, how about, I don't drink today? How about, I'll think about it later? It's about making a decision, having a saying, something that will remind you for that amount of time that you need. You don't have to say, I'm never going to drink again, because that's going to put such a millstone on your neck. You just have to think, how long do I need to understand that I'm not going to drink? How long can I believe in myself for? If it's 5 minutes, it's 5 minutes. But I tell you something, see, when you get to the end of that 5 minutes, you've achieved something. If it's an hour, it's an hour. If it's a day, it's a day. It's about what works for you. So if truth be told, there isn't really one catchphrase that will work. There's things that will work for a lot of people, but getting something that you can say to yourself easily, something that's not throwaway like just don't drink, but something that works for you, is the way to go forward with this. And then start realizing that you are achieving something, that you can do better, that your life can be better and you can do more with your life. It's not about punishing yourself. It's not about taking something away, which is often seen. When you say something like just don't drink, that can have connotations of being punished. That can have connotations of something being taken away because you're not capable of controlling it. But that's not the way to look at it. You're not trying to control something that's difficult to control. In effect, that's what's happening. But what you're really doing, what you're trying to go for, is how do you improve your life? How can you make your life better? What more can you do? These are the things that you're trying to do. Understand that. Look forward to these things. There's a whole host of techniques and tools that you can use, more than I can put into this short video. But the important thing is, find something that helps you. That help might change. That saying might change. There's no point in saying, I'll think about it in another hour, or I'll decide in another hour, if you're 6 months down the line and you know you can go for a week without a drink. Things change, things evolve. You understand yourself better. That's one of the massive things about this as well, that you understand yourself better. The more you're alcohol free, the more time you're spending with yourself, not with a hazy, alcohol-induced version of yourself. And when you do that, you start to understand yourself better. It can be scary. This is where things like coaches and therapy and talking to friends connecting with other people in various AF groups, that's where that becomes important. Because when you've got that connection, you have strength. You have strength through other people. There are times when you're by yourself, but it all helps. It all helps you get through those times. And the more that you understand what's happening, the more that you understand yourself, the more that you understand your values and what motivates you, then the less you have to rely on willpower, which is one of the weakest things we can have when it comes to alcohol. The more that you can start to rely on habits and habit loops and changing behaviours. And then that becomes, and here's the funny thing, and people don't realise it at the beginning, it becomes every day. It becomes something you just do. The triggers, the notions, that thought about, oh, I'll have a drink, that situation where you think, a drink would be nice, that doesn't stop. You can't hide from that. That doesn't stop because it's been there for years. What does happen is that bit by bit, and no matter how many times you've had a blip and you might have had a drink, but you've got back up, no matter how many times that happens, as you keep going, you become stronger. And by going and becoming stronger, when those notions do come into your head, it's not a case of just don't drink. It's a case of I don't drink. I'd love to hear your favourite sayings of when things get a bit difficult. What phrases help you? What do you find really positive? Thanks very much. Like and subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you next week in the next video. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.